Hey, hello everybody. I guess this is our last session of the night, so we'll try to make it interesting, and everybody can get to dinner afterwards. And yeah, I'm happy to be talking in the last session with Shane Tegerati. He's the president and CEO of High Growth Regions at Honeywell. He's been there for 17 years, and I would say. Definitely a 中国通, as everybody likes to say over here. He's been in China since 1993, worked with Unisys and Deloitte, among other places over the years. And I have to say, I was looking at your bio, and I was probably most impressed by all the languages you speak. He's from Canada, so he speaks English and French, but also Arabic, Persian, Spanish, Turkish, and then, of course, Mandarin, and last but not least, Shanghainese, right?
A little bit.
So any of you Shanghai people here can have a chat with.
Yeah, don't try my Shanghainese. It's very street Shanghainese.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm sure there are a few Shanghainese in the audience. Anyhow, so let's get started. We want to talk, I guess, a little bit about the sort of the more people side of things. You've been here for such a long time, and you really understand. You've been called a Lao Pengyo of China, and you've been here and worked with people for all this time. The first question was, lately, it seems like there's a lot of misunderstandings and miscommunication between China and the rest of the world, not on a political level, but also maybe culturally on a person-to-person level. What do you attribute this to? And do you think it's something that's going to keep getting worse, or is there something related to the conditions right now, or what do you think's happening here?
Yeah, thank you. I think it's attributed to a combination of things. There's no one thing. Obviously, the political tension and the negative chatter definitely doesn't help, right? It really concerns me, and it concerns a lot of people that are China watchers. But I also think that the pandemic itself created just distances and inability to come and go and to be able to get down to the business of doing business versus get down to the business of pandemic, and that slows everything down. I've been back to China. Obviously, my office is here, but I've been back and forth 3 times, and it's difficult. It's difficult just to get back here, to go through the whole hurdle of getting through. So that all adds to it. But I do think that I see the negative sentiment slightly on the rise in the past, say, 3-4 years, and I think it's concerning, and I'm sure a lot of the investors here, a lot of our community want to do something to ensure that a better picture, a more balanced picture is painted. That's certainly my goal.
So, can you sort of identify what's causing it, and is it something that's here for a while? Are we past the honeymoon period, like some people say, and it's just going to get worse from here?
I think in my view, people that don't have a deeper understanding of China and don't really understand the dynamics and are not thoughtfully looking at it, yes, maybe they get thrown into they get taken by this wind of negative anti-China sentiment. People who do really understand the dynamic of what's going on in the world in the past 30 years, the role that China has played, and where the world is going, and the savvy investors and savvy companies and people who really understand it, I think for them, they look at this as an unfortunate situation, but they're not waiting. They're making very good investments and continue to engage with China. Companies like us, we've been here a long time. In the past 17, 18 years, we've truly made China a global center of innovation for the high growth regions in the world. So for us, it's a different story.
Right, I guess from someone who's on the ground here. But I mean, are you getting any pushback at all from the States, from the headquarters there about do we want to think twice about investing in China, putting more money here because sentiment's getting worse?
Actually, not, because we're not a political entity. We work in a number of different sectors. And in fact, because more than half of our sector, half of our portfolio, we're a very, very diverse company. More than half of our portfolio is related to climate change, environment, and energy. And this, at least, is one major area that China and the US, in fact, China and the world, completely agree on in terms of focus, in terms of investments, in terms of putting politics aside and getting down to the business of climate and food security and energy and so on and so forth. So from that perspective, I feel like we're in a pretty good place.
Well, okay, so Honeywell's in a good place. How would you say for a company that maybe isn't in that sort of a position, what kind of strategies? Because you do hear that you're supposed to play to the government's priorities, show that you're helping the government reach its objectives and so forth. What if you're making widgets that the government doesn't particularly have a strong feeling about?
Let me turn that around. A lot of people, I think, it ask the question, says, are you playing to the government objectives or government directions or government 5-year plans and so on and so forth? In fact, I turn it around and say, you should play to the global megatrends. There's a high correlation between Chinese government's initiatives and strategies and the global megatrends. And you look at, for example, the real focus on climate change, focus on analytics and AI, focus on food security, focusing on digitization. These are all, on both sides, global megatrends as well as Chinese government's focus. So to me, it's not like some government official has been whispering in my ears, go and invest in this area. No, we've done our own independent look at where the world is moving to, and also just validate that with where the government money is going. 9 out of 10, they're the same. For us,
right?
In the areas that we operate. So I haven't found. In fact, I have in the past 17 years, we've done about 80 acquisitions and 75 or 80 divestitures. So we haven't really grown by acquisitions. We've grown by portfolio adjustment. Most of our portfolio adjustment has been around these global megatrends. Of course, when we think about global megatrends, we take China into account because China is single-handedly the largest industrial mover in the global megatrends.
Okay, fair enough. Interesting way to put it. How about something looking from your long experience here? You've been here almost 3 decades and continuously too. I mean, how has the competitive landscape, the local competition specifically, changed over that time? You must have seen a lot of different.
I think this is very much related to your last question too, because I didn't completely answer it. But I'd have to say the competitive landscape has continuously evolved and changed in China to a point where in this area, and I see people like Phyllis and others who are here, I'm sure that they'll all tell you, in almost every sector, but certainly in the industrial sectors that we are, in the technology industrial sector, China is the most competitive place on earth. Not just for price. I mean, people think, oh, it's just a price game. No, it's an innovation game. It's a channel to market game. It's the savviness application of technology to the realities of society. We have, if you take the pyramid, we say, okay, high-end, upper mid-range, and then mass market, or in the masses of the companies, like small and medium-sized companies. We have about 11,000 competitors in China, in the bottom. And then we have about 600 or 700 in the mid, then 200 in upper mid, and about 5 global. You take a look at, for example, India. That is less than a dozen companies in India. In all of high growth regions, we don't have 35 formidable competitors. In China, we have about 200 formidable competitors. So it's not just price. And by the way, it used to be that there were just copycats. But that was 15, 16 years ago. Now, of course, you have copycats, but I don't worry about copycats because we have completely local innovation. I worry about the companies that innovate better than us, attract better talent, allocate capital better than us, and they're everywhere.
Really? Can you
Absolutely.
give some examples of like maybe one or two Chinese companies?
I will give you examples in many industries, of course. I believe, for example, in the EV industry, in the electric vehicle, China is going to lead the world. Already 80% of the capacity is here. A lot of the innovation is happening here. Of course, in traditional autos, China was 50 years behind the market, behind the trend, because auto market had been growing for a long time. In EV, I think we already are beginning to see the quality, the innovation, even in autonomous technology. I think in the area of, let's take it in the area of video analytics. Hikvision and Dahua, two Chinese companies. They certainly are leaders in this area, if not in America and Europe, but certainly are leaders in this area in just about every other market. In China, they're dominant, but they're pretty good in Africa, in Middle East, in Eastern Europe, in Russia. Their analytics technology, facial recognition, their artificial intelligence for video, and application of it to smart cities, smart buildings, and so on and so forth. Pretty formidable. And each of them are, more than a few $1 billion in sales and market cap.
How about on the topic of that? I mean, Hikvision, I know, is one that was put on a U.S. blacklist, and I imagine quite a few of the other real cutting-edge ones are. Is that affecting, how do you see that affecting them and your ability to compete with them?
Yeah, I think some of these companies, I think this whole area is going to be with us for some time, unfortunately. Some of it is politically motivated. Some of it maybe is just fear and ignorance motivated. Some of it could have some levels of truth to it in terms of real concerns. I think it's real, but reality is that the world does not begin and end in America or in the Western markets. America is a huge market, but the rest of the world is rising rapidly. India, Southeast Asia, Latin America, Africa, Eastern Europe, all of these markets rising rapidly, and increasingly the Chinese investors, Chinese technology providers, Chinese companies are actually finding it becoming savvier in operating in these places. If you go, for example, to Algeria, one of the construction companies who builds about 70% of the infrastructure there, all of their about a quarter of their population is Chinese, 3/4 are Algerian. They all have been there a long time. The general manager speaks Arabic and French and has been there 18 years. They have really learned how to operate in these markets, in markets that are typically very difficult for companies like us.
But I guess with the Hikvision example I was using, they're not only maybe facing difficulty in the U.S., but they're having their technology cut off from them, right? Aren't they having, like I said, they've been blacklisted. I think they aren't allowed to buy certain U.S. chips.
Yeah, I think they're having, and that's why I think back to some of the discussions that was happening, and Tim was talking about it too, that there definitely is going to be a fight for supply in this area, supply chain constraints, and availability of dual suppliers. I think on both sides there's a lot of lessons, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of concern that growing at the right speed requires that you have secure lines of supply. So I think companies like Hikvision are going to take those measures.
Okay. All right, let's shift gears a second, and I want to ask you about something else I heard, which
Sure.
is Wuhan.
Yes.
Wuhan, I heard you were one of the last major executives to get out of Wuhan.
On
Good
January
story.
20th, as
Yeah,
far as I know, I was the last
just
senior executive visiting Wuhan because it was pretty well closed the next day.
that's right. Just before the city was locked down,
Yes.
right? Right before right when the pandemic was starting. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And
Well, a lot of people, like, when it was very interesting because when, before this whole thing all melted, I put my Wuhan visit with the mayor and all that in LinkedIn. And normally, I'm not a Wang Hong or anything. I get like 100,000 hits or something like that. And all of a sudden, after the pandemic, it was like millions of hits and tens of thousands of messages, calling me patient zero and things like that. It was pretty funny. But it had nothing to do with the pandemic or anything like that when we chose Wuhan. We did a very, very thorough site selection, all in 2019, for a second headquarters for innovation for the mass markets in the world. We did it all over the world. We came down to Wuhan and to Pune in India. And we chose Wuhan against 11 other major cities in China. And by the way, our selection was completed on December 20th. And then I went to see the mayor and all that on the 20th of January. And in fact, I called them all up in the morning and said, I'm coming. I hear a little bit of this chrono something. And then they said, no, it's all good. We went there. I left that night. And of course, everything else is history. But when that happened, though, we recognized it. We recognized the negative chatter and so on and so forth. But, we were the first company to go back to Wuhan in April when it opened up. Oh. And I received a personal letter from Li Keqiang for, applauding us. We didn't do it for political reasons. But we have a big business there. We have a whole bunch of people there. The innovations that's coming out of there for mass market, for the lower, what we call mass mid market, is phenomenal. We're already seeing application of it in Southeast Asia, in Latin America, in Africa, and soon in everybody's doorsteps.
All right. I guess on that topic too, since Wuhan is so politicized and we've been talking about politics, I mean, can you say how much does politics play into, when you go and choose a new location? I mean, you must give it some consideration, right?
Yeah, usually the part of politics that we give consideration is not the headline politics of CNN and CNBC and all that. It's do we have a good relationship with the local government there? Can we get long-term support for, for our innovation, our incentives, and so on and so forth? Can we have a relationship? When we go somewhere, it's long-term, and it's not just about land and buildings. It's about people, innovation, working. Like we've been in Pudong now for so long. We work with the government very closely in Xi'an, in Tianjin, in Shenzhen. We pick places and go deep. And we do the same thing. I do the same thing in Africa, in Latin America, like in Mexico City, for example, and in Monterrey, in parts of India. So government plays a big role, and if there's a government that is business-friendly, understands that business is not just about taxes and buildings, understands the challenges businesses have, and are willing to work with us, we invest with them.
All right. Yeah, I was thinking, because one of the sessions two before us, they were talking about semiconductors. I think
Yes.
it's like a great example. What if you are looking at Wuhan, and one of the preconditions is there's going to be a new chip factory, because they were building a major new chip factory, and then suddenly they can't get equipment from ASML.
Well, if that happens, it is true. But you know what? For us, supply chain is a global issue. We don't just go to Wuhan because the chip factory is next door. We are in light software and electronics industry. Supply chain is a global issue. We don't build, we build engines and stuff like that too. But our supply chain issues is a global issue. Hence, we have a major global supply chain transformation program that's going on right now. It's been going on for 3 years. I expect it to go on for much longer. And that's about automation. It's about supply chain diversification. It's about partnership. yeah, if that happens in Wuhan, we would solve that some other way.
Okay, I think we're running low on time, but I just wanted to ask one more quick question,
Yes.
which is I've heard that you're going to retire soon.
Yes.
I think, I don't know if that's a big secret or not, but can you tell us a little bit about what does one do after working, 17 years at Honeywell, 3 decades in China? You
Yeah.
stay here?
Well, I'll say the more opaque answer, but we'll have a little. My colleague here will come and say something afterwards. But look, I spent 30 years in China. I believe China is the greatest transformation story of humanity in the 21st century. It's and engaging with China and together with the rising of the next 2 or 3 billion in the world is the greatest both challenge and a gift to humanity, because we cannot continue on this 10% of the world kind of runs all the institutions and economies of the 90% of the past 300 years. And it's not happening anymore. It's inevitable. You got to work with China. I feel that I was privileged that I was here witnessing such an incredible transformation. So the next chapter of my life 3.0, if you want to call it, is certainly going to have a big element of building bridges between China and the rest of the world. And the only way I know how to do that is through businesses, investments, and connecting people and hearts and souls together. So